Well, here we go, guys. The comparison you've all been waiting for. Now, we have done comparisons to NFL franchises, to Formula One teams. But today we're going to be talking about the best league in the world. The league that we are in right now, in this country. And that, of course, is the Premier League. Now, nothing comes close to football. And as I said in the NFL video, you can't compare sports. But in this one, we're going to have a go. So, of course, there is only 10 teams. So only 10 football teams can take our predictions. And to be honest, Jordan, I would say that these are some good predictions. We might ruffle some feathers a little bit. We don't know every single team and your personality's out there, so I assume we'll get a lot of comments on here and on Twitter and things like that, but we're going to give it a go anyways. And in first position, or the first team we're going to say, of course, is Williams going in descending order. And who is going to be matched up with the team that finished in last place? Well, that team, of course, is the London team in red. North London is red, and that, of course, is Arsenal. Now, we know a lot of fans out there. Shout out to Mike from F1 Fanatics, who, of course, is an Arsenal fan. Now, the reason that we said Arsenal for this prestigious achievement. Now, Arsenal, I would say, were a good team. One of the best teams in North London. I mean, when you came there, especially when they built the Emirates, it was one of the first teams, one of the first stadiums you saw on the train. It was, a really good team, had a lot of history and pedigree about it. And don't get me wrong, in the past 10, 15 years, they had some great achievements. Williams' kind of last reign was, around the early 2000s, and that was really when Arsenal did. I mean, we all remember the 2005, I think they called them, what was the Untouchables or something, Incredibles. Of course, that amazing season, undefeated with Thierry Henry. But since then, it's not really been Arsenal's year. Now, of course, great fan base. They're remembering the history. They never give up on the team. They followed them from, of course, the Highbury to the Emirates. But it never hasn't really gone their way. And especially when Arsene Wenger, who I guess in this case you could say was like Frank Williams, of course, when Sir Frank had, more reigns of the team. The Arsene Wenger, great manager for Arsenal. When he kind of stepped down and gave the reins to Claire Williams, who in this case you could probably say is Unai Emery, of course the team didn't go very well. Loss after loss after loss after loss. And then you just saw this massive fall between, this kind of big contender who was up there fighting for Champions League positions and Europa League positions fall down to, heading towards the back end of the table. Now, Arsenal at the moment are in 10th place at time of recording, and that might not be that bad. Mid-table, of course, our team, we wouldn't mind that. But for Arsenal, for a team that, as I've said, are always kind of in that Europa League position, it's not good. But still great support, still a lot of people behind him. And of course now, Williams haven't really brought anyone new on. But of course with Mikel Arteta at the wheel, same old, same as Williams. It's just said that this is going to be our year. Now they have a good few things behind them. I guess you could say like George Russell is like Aubameyang, for example. They have some good fire behind them. They have some good youth behind them. But yeah, nothing really there. Nothing really on the pace. And compared to their London counterparts, apart from I guess you could say West Ham, they're just nothing is really about them. They've really slipped behind, especially where they used to be. And yes, let's hope that they can get better. Of course, I guess Williams, obviously British team, we're all behind them. I guess you could say that people do have a bit of a soft spot for Arsenal. Obviously, a lot of people who live in places like Hertfordshire support Arsenal, have a good backing. We'll never lose faith in them. But yeah, if you don't live in Arsenal, don't really like them as a team, you just know them to be this team that's really fallen off dominance, to be honest. So yeah, that's Arsenal as the team in last place.
Yeah, sorry, Mike, about that. Apologies. I'm pretty sure he will be kind of offended by that. So the next team we're going to go for is Alfa Romeo. Now, for this one, we're going to go with our boyhood club, Newcastle United. Now, we had to include Newcastle in here at some point. We just had to, even if it wasn't a relatable comparison, we just had to involve Newcastle in some shape or form. And of course, Premier League teams only, so sorry Sunderland fans, you're not going to be featured in this video, sorry. Well, yes, we're going with Alfa Romeo. Now, we have kind of gone with like a comparison with this one. Alfa Romeo are like that team where 1 minute they're going through a really good patch. Like they're scoring points in, let's say, 3 or 4 races, and they're looking pretty solid as well. Like both teams are qualifying well, races, pace is really good, looking after the tyres. It's all looking good. Then all of a sudden, they can just drop off the pace completely and then not score any points for like the next 8 to 10 rounds, and you're thinking, what's gone wrong? What's this like? And obviously, transition from Alfa Romeo to Sauber, you could say like this is like kind of Sauber's form, a kind of like the up and down phase. And funny enough, Newcastle went through this really good run in the Premier League in 2011 and 2012, the same year that Sauber had this magical year in 2012, where like Perez was on the podium a couple of times, nearly won the Grand Prix in Malaysia. You know, Newcastle finished fifth, got into Europe the following season, and it hasn't really been the same since. But like I said, 1 minute they're doing good, 1 minute they're doing bad, and that's pretty much Newcastle at the moment. All right, they might have a really good backing in the boardroom staff at Alfa Romeo. They might like the Alfa Romeo brand. They might like who's there. They might give some people some money to invest in the team, unlike our owner. But let's not go into that. Let's not open that can of worms. Let's not. But no, and Alfa Romeo have like. You're not expecting Alfa Romeo to be like world champions anytime soon. Oh yeah, they might have that one season where they just have they might have a good season and they're challenging for P4 or even P3, but then like next season you know that they're just going to fall away. And Newcastle are very much like that. You know that we're not going to be winning the Premier League anytime soon unless we pull off a Leicester, which is very unlikely. You just know that. All right, we might have that one season where. Yeah, we're up there, we're fighting with the big boys, but realistically, we're more or less going to be like mid-table, in the bottom half of the table, maybe a relegation scrap here and there, but you just know that, yeah, the top is probably a bit beyond our reach, unless someone comes in with big bucks and invests all their money, and then who knows, we will win the Premier League one day, yay! We can keep dreaming, guys, we can keep dreaming.
Definitely. Well, I mean, I think that's a good comparison. I mean, you know, you can't really go wrong with Alfa Romeo. That's the thing. Like, where they start off, and it can only get bigger. And a lot of times as well, we kind of get outside support because we'll be, you know, like, especially for me, for example, going to uni down in London, there'll be a lot of people who obviously don't live in Newcastle or don't support Newcastle, but they'll watch the team and they'll be excited when we win. I mean, as, you know, people who don't, as they live anywhere near, like, Liverpool or anything like that, do we really get excited when another team wins? Not really, but a lot of people do get excited when Newcastle win. I mean, that late win against Chelsea that we had, the last 1-0 was like insane. People talk about that, even if they're not Newcastle fans. Anyway, yes, so great comparison, I would say, for Alfa Romeo. Moving on to the next team, which is Haas. Now, this is a bit of a strange one for Haas. I think Haas, to be honest, were a hard one to pick. But this kind of one reason is why would stick with this team, and that is Bournemouth. Now, Bournemouth are a team that just... So there's 20 teams in the Premier League, and just Bournemouth, like, did you actually expect Bournemouth to be there? So basically, when Haas came in 2016, we expected Haas to, you know, not really go the distance. There's been teams that have, you know, stuck ahead in Formula 1, but of course there's a lot of money and politics and things like that in F1. Bournemouth, to be honest, I mean, you know, good team. Obviously, Jermaine Defoe went there. Obviously, he played out, is very highly respected up in the northeast. I would say they are a good team, but just everything about them is, you know, trying to keep the head above water. You know, they've had, you know, quite a few seasons now just bouncing around the lower part of the tables. At the moment, at current time, the 18th position in the relegation zone, and that's just them, really. They've had 4 wins. They've had 4 losses in 5 games as time of recording. And it's just not, you know, looking strong for them at the moment. Don't really know why they're in the Premier League, you know, trying to keep the head really in that position to, you know, keep fighting with the big boys. Even, you know, the Vitality Stadium down in Bournemouth or in the South Coast. Never been there, so I can't really say much about it, but not really loads of buzz and kind of stadium atmosphere about that. Yes, they have some fans, but it's not like a massive market. It's kind of more like, so Haas have, you know, some American fans and some kind of Formula 1 fans who just kind of like Formula 1, don't love it and don't really understand the politics. Just a team that kind of confused us, really. But like Haas, can have some great performances and really just kind of shock us. You know, 1 minute they'll be, you know, in the relegation zone, and the next minute they'll be up high, you know, fighting for you know, the top positions in the top in the bottom half, but of course never get past 10th place. A team that you just kind of, you rub your eyes and think, I can't believe they're still there, but it's fun to see, you know, how they kind of are still here, really, and that's exactly what you can say about Haas. But now we're getting used to them, though. So you turn on the Premier League and you see Bournemouth are there. It's a bit like now when you see Haas and you think, that's fine, I expected them to be there. There's no change. But we'll hope that they can get higher up in the table. But yeah, to be honest, a team that have really, bounced relegation zone quite a lot, and kind of, I'm a bit shocked that they are still here, really. Especially with, sometimes we get some big spikes from them when they win games, and it's like, oh my god, they're on the charge, a bit like Haas, but it'll never last that long. That's about it, really. All to say with them. Obviously, we know too much about Bournemouth. Just hoping that they have a better season than they are having at the moment for next year, and that can be definitely said about Haas. But there we go. That's Bournemouth, obviously in the American team of Haas.
No, yeah, I think that's a really good comparison because, like, Haas, when they came into Formula 1, everyone was like, oh, look, they're going to fall completely on their arses. And they didn't. They surprised everyone. In 2019 was, like, their first really bad year in Formula 1. With Bournemouth, it was, like, the exact same thing. They came into the Premier League, and everyone went, well, these are going to go straight back down. And they didn't. They excelled, top 10 finishes, pushing for Europe in some seasons. However, this current season, at time of recording, like Lyle said, they are in 18th place and they are struggling badly. I don't want to see Bournemouth go down, personally. Neither do I want to see Haas do really badly because
no.
I like both of them, if I'm honest. But yeah, I think that, Haas had a really bad 2019. Bournemouth are having a really bad 2019 to 2020 season. So yeah, you can kind of see where we're coming from in that sense. So next team we're moving on to is Racing Point, Force India, whatever you want to call them. And for this team, we are going with Wolverhampton Wanderers. Yes, using their Sunday name. So Wolves are killing it at the moment in the Premier League. The second season since coming up in the Championship. The first season, wow. I think they finished in 7th place, I think, in a European spot. Very, very impressive for your first season back in the Premier League. And currently, I think they're about 9th or 8th, I believe. So, they're doing pretty impressive. And they've got that added extra football of the European competitions, of course. So they've got more football to play. So they're doing pretty impressive. And one of the reasons why Wolves are doing really, really well is because they've got a really good, rich owner from Portugal. In the same sense, you've got Racing Point, who, of course, yes, they've just got Lawrence Stroll in. They've just got the consortium in. So it's going to take a lot of time before Racing Point ever see this money kind of being developed. Probably not until 2021. So in that way, yes, we are a bit off in that sense that Racing Point aren't doing as well as what Wolves are, let's say, in that comparison. But in the money way, yes, because Racing Point are investing a lot in their team. There's plans of a new factory. Of course, there's plans for a brand new team, apparently, with Aston Martin, what's going on with that. And of course, same way that Portugal, the Portuguese investor, they've got a Portuguese manager, that half the squad's Portuguese. At Wolves, that you've got a lot of Canadian relations in with Racing Point. The owner's Canadian, one of the drivers is Canadian, maybe some of the staff is Canadian. So you see where I'm coming from with this. And I think Racing Point in the future, investing their money very, very, well, I think one day will be ending up pushing for that top 3 bracket. Winning the Premier League, winning the World Constructors Championship, maybe not yet. But certainly, if I was to say, okay, which midfield team would you think that will win the championship very soon? I would say Racing Point out of anyone else. In the same way that I would say, okay, apart from the top 6, who would you say is more likely to win the Premier League if we remove the top 6? I would say Wolves, not without a shadow of a doubt. So in that comparison, yeah, I think that's a pretty strong one in my opinion. So Racing Point, we have gone with Wolves.
Yeah, well, I think that's good for sure. Racing Point definitely really like. And one of my favourite races from them was Spa 2018. They'd lost the name, they'd lost the point, they were stripped of the point because of the name change. And I remember, I know it's only a very small thing, but I remember, Esteban Ocon and Sergio Perez, on the was it Esteban? Yes, on the going up the Kemmel Straight. And they were challenging the 2 guys at the front, which I think was Lewis and Seb at that time. I just remember that being absolutely crazy. And if anything, that was Wolves. They came up and it was like, I can't believe they're actually here. And, doing kind of well. It's absolutely insane. But yeah, I think that's a good comparison. So, the next one. I think this is a good one. Of course, it is Toro Rosso, the Italian team, which will be soon to be known as Alpha Tauri. And we've gone with a good team. I'm sticking with the South Coast here. And we are going to go with Southampton. Now, that is a strange team. A tale of kind of a very weird team. It's actually my uncle's team, if you're watching. Hello. So, Southampton, are like kind of known as just this, secondary, a bit like Bournemouth, kicky around team. I've actually been to St Mary's. It was my first proper Premier League away day. I can't say I was very impressed with St Mary's. I'm sorry anyone living down in Southampton, but it's in the middle of an industrial estate. Is it the same with the Stadium of Light? That might be a bit of an insult. We'll see. But Southampton, a team that started this year. So last year they were in the relegation zone and they got out at the last minute, I can't believe they've done that. Toro Rosso, a team that, again, just haven't really achieved very much. They came into Formula One a year after Red Bull Racing over a decade ago now, and it was kind of like, I don't really know why. Of course, they had Sebastian Vettel's win, and that was like the highlight for them for a number of years. Really, I would say until they kind of brought in, obviously they brought in some great feeder drivers, but really until they had the kind of their clause on, Danny Kvyat when it changed to V6s, I would say that's when really Toro Rosso started to kind of, pick up its game. But in recent years, it's just kind of been a secondary team just to kind of kick around. They have promoted a lot of people up, which of course we'll see, later on. But they have had some great players, come through that squad, obviously ending up kind of in the same place. And then starting this year, bad turn of form, loss after loss after loss, and just kind of typical Southampton attitude, really, typical Southampton play. They've got some kind of the good names as well. Obviously, Danny Ings has been chucked around there. Obviously, future Liverpool player, as a few other people have been. And then since about Christmas time, I think it was when they played Chelsea, Christmas time, I think it was a Boxing Day game, they just had a spike of oh my God, it's absolutely crazy. And they just started winning games, win. And they've just recently played Leicester, a 2-1 against them. It was absolutely crazy, really. And obviously Southampton at the moment, breaking into the top 10, obviously if time of recording, probably changes a lot. That's the thing about Premier League. As we're talking right now, this could have all changed. Southampton could be in the relegation zone, but as we are recording, 9th place, it's not too bad from them. And yeah, that's why I would say with Toro Rosso. In terms of what they have achieved, I guess you could say their kind of breakthrough, like with Danny Ings, their kind of run of form. Guess you could kind of say it's like their 2 podiums that they've had this year came out of the blue. No one really expected, oh my God, did that actually happen? On the flip side, though, I don't really know where to put that 9-0 against Leicester. Toro Rosso haven't really had a heartbreak as bad as 9-0. I guess maybe having Brendan Hartley as a driver, maybe, but I don't know. I mean, maybe you can tell us, is Brendan Hartley as bad as that 9-0 loss they had against Leicester? But yeah, that's about it, really. Yes, Toro Rosso is Southampton.
Yeah, I think Southampton are that team where, again, they're just going to be floating about in the midfield. One season they could be really, really impressive, and one season they could be really, really bad. And Toro Rosso, again, are like that. Excuse me. Are like that team. It's similar to kind of Newcastle in a way. You're not expecting big things from them, but you know that. Well, you don't know what's going to happen with them. Basically, that they're a very unpredictable team. You don't know whether they're going to have if you come into a season, you don't know whether they're going to be challenging for the title. Bit extreme, but you know what I mean. Challenging for the title or battling relegation. You don't know where it's going to go, and that's the beauty thing. But later on in the video, if you do follow football quite closely, you'll know why we put Southampton as Toro Rosso when we mention another team, and a little funny pun in there as well. So the next one we're going for is Renault, and we are teaming up Renault with Leicester. Now, for me, this is probably Renault was a very tricky one to kind of think of. This is probably the longest we thought about when we were comparing these teams. So the reason why we've went with Leicester is because when Renault won their constructors back in 2005 and of course 2006, that was at a time where Ferrari were at their very best. Schumacher, Barrichello, winning races, mostly Schumacher, winning constructors championships. They were absolutely unstoppable. And at this point, when Leicester won the Premier League in 15-16, you had the likes of Man City, Chelsea, sort of dominating the sport. I mean, Man City were unstoppable at this point. Pep Guardiola with their money. Chelsea, I think they had Conte at the time, or might have just sacked Mourinho. I think that it was like a Mourinho Conte kind of era. I think it was Conte. He was in charge when Leicester won the league, I believe. I could be wrong with that one, but Leicester surprised everybody and won the league. Renault surprised everybody and won the Constructors. Because Ferrari, nobody looked like coming close to Ferrari at this point. Renault, they did it. They beat the big boys. Recently, however, hasn't been as quite good. They've had a good few spells. I mean, you could say that Leicester's form now is the equivalent of Renault/Lotus's form in 2012, 2013 when they are doing pretty well. And Leicester are doing really, really well in the Champions League positions. I would say fighting for the title, but I think they're like 18 points away from Liverpool, so that's a no-go. But nevertheless, they're still having a very solid season. In the same way that Renault, well, 2018 was very strong, so you could, let's say that compare those. That Leicester maybe having a standard season last season that could be Renault's season. All right, they're not having a good season now, but I think the comparison really is when Renault won the title back in 05 and 06, and of course when Leicester won the title in 15 and 16. So kind of like little comparison there in when they won the titles, 15, 16, 05, 06. You know what I'm saying? And also as well, the two teams that we just mentioned, Southampton and Leicester beat Southampton 9-0. So there you go. Just a random thing off the top of my head. So yeah.
The first stat attack of 2020 is a Premier League football
more stat attacks coming your way. So yes, like I said, Renault was quite tricky. But of course, if you can think of anybody else better suited for Renault, then leave it in the comment section below.
But yeah, I think that's pretty good that to have Leicester there. I think it's just kind of waiting for what can they do against kind of a team that's not really in with the big boys. Obviously, you've got the big boys at the top. Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull, Liverpool, Man City. We're not going to give anything away, but like Leicester are not. But the way that they did that win was absolutely crazy. So, moving on to fourth place. Of course, McLaren. Now, a lot of people will be thinking, what team are we going to put with McLaren? Because it's hollow ground. And unfortunately, Jordan, we can't use Newcastle as we've just already used them. So, we're going to go with pretty much a neutral one for us and say Tottenham Hotspur. Now, Tottenham, a North London rival, and I guess you could say, because I said Arsenal was Williams, and obviously Tottenham is McLaren, two British teams, the rivalry, possibly, am I going in the right direction? Anyway, so Tottenham, of course, a team that, again, you expect to be, like, at the top. London teams are just... London Premier League teams don't, like, play a little bit. They go hard or go home. And this year, we're seeing a lot of teams in London, especially West Ham, going home, really. So it's not, great for Tottenham. And obviously, they are a team of really two Tottenham. So, of course, average... history about them in the last few years, of course, moving from White Hart Lane, that kind of old pedigree, I guess you could say, was like the old McLaren. Obviously, they just dusted off Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton just left. They had Sergio Perez. They had Kevin Magnussen. Nothing was really working. They're jumping about from manager to manager, players to players. The kind of the big names again since like when Harry Kane left, who to be honest I can say is like the only real big Tottenham name I knew. Back in the days of yore, when he left, and then there was nothing really about Tottenham anymore. We kind of made comparisons to this season and heading into last season. But last season they did pretty well, obviously getting to, of course, the Champions League final. Also as well, obviously they had Mauricio Pochettino, who was a pretty good manager. I guess you could say that was kind of the leadership of Zach Brown when he was brought in. Zach Brown, obviously an American guy. Americans in Formula One have had a rocky road, obviously, apart from Mario Andretti, who won the World Championship. And obviously the race that they had, like for example in Indianapolis and Detroit. America hasn't really had a massive stand in Formula One. So for Pochettino or Zach Brown in this way to do what he did with the team was pretty amazing. This season, of course, last season, of course, obviously with the two old guys Fernando Alonso, kind of had a difference to it. You don't really remember that. That seemed like ages ago to me, to be honest. This year came in, you had two massive names, Carlos Sainz and Lando Norris. Carlos Sainz to me is kind of like a Harry Kane, really. He is holding the torch for Spain now. When Fernando Alonso left the sport, he is now holding the torch for Spain. A bit like how Harry Kane is still kind of indirectly holding the torch for England. And of course, obviously heading into the Euros this year, is he still going to be in the team? Is he still going to be the captain? Is he still going to be on form? But he has led the team in a good direction. I guess you could say Lando Norris is maybe like Hugo Lloris or Dele Alli, somewhat Lucas Moura, who obviously is coming through the ranks. And of course, the big one, Jose Mourinho, you guess you could say, is like Andreas Seidel. Basically, a big shift in kind of the way that they do things, kind of rebuilding the team as well. They moved into the new White Hart Lane, which I think was at the start of the season. Obviously, lovely place, love to go down there sometime. And yeah, just a new Tottenham, a new kind of revamp. And of course, even though last season was good, obviously it was progressive. 2018 was progressive. 2019, the making of them, and of course heading into a good season, what should be ahead, especially with that new leadership. And of course, I think that's definitely what they needed. Even though we of course thought that Maurizio Pochettino was a good leader for Tottenham, but yes. McLaren, I'm going to go with Spurs, another North London team, and yes, let's see how that goes down. And of course, we all want McLaren to win. They're kind of like our diamond in the rough team, and I guess you could say if you weren't in London, or you weren't a Formula One fan, or you did live in London and you were a Formula One football, if you weren't a Formula One fan, if you weren't a football fan in London, you could probably pick Spurs. That's kind of like a bit of a weakness, really. So yes, McLaren will be Tottenham Hotspur.
No, I'm pretty happy with that comparison. McLaren and Spurs, I would take that. Although, I would like to have McLaren and Newcastle, of course. But we're trying to be realistic here, guys. So we're going to try and stay on topic. So we're coming in now to the big three teams in Formula One. Who have we teamed up with them in terms of Premier League teams? Well, let's find out. So Red Bull, we have gone with Liverpool. Now, just before I start, if you flash back your mind to when we mentioned Toro Rosso, we said Southampton. And as a bit of a joke, we said we would say Red Bull, Liverpool, because if you don't follow football, basically that Liverpool have been known for buying Southampton players in the same way that Red Bull take Toro Rosso's drivers because they're like feeder teams, and like Liverpool and Southampton are feeder teams and all that jazz. So that's like a little side joke. But on a serious note, I would definitely say that Liverpool and Red Bull are quite close. Right? Okay. In a way, Red Bull are quite modern in terms of Liverpool, like their history, it was a long time ago. But we're thinking about it of today. Liverpool seem very happy, very, modern, very like, okay, brand new stadium. Well, I say it's new stadium. Anfield has been extended to make it look very more modern, upbeat. Jurgen Klopp, what a transformation he has done at Liverpool. When he came in, they were in a right old mess. Changed everything around. Now look at where they are. You could say that when the new regulations came in 2010. That's when 2009. That's when Red Bull transitioned into they're in a bit of a I don't know where they're going to oh wow. And of course money's involved. Definitely money's involved. It's not just down to Klopp, but big backing from the owner. It's definitely helped. And of course, it's in the same way Red Bull has. Red Bull haven't just found the mystery sauce all of a sudden overnight. It's taken a lot of money in R&D to invest and then find out what makes the car work better, and then it just went from there. And now Red Bull are looking to find their success again, the same way that Liverpool are. Liverpool are like, I think they're about 7 games away from winning the Premier League for the first time in their history, and their first league title in 30 years. That's incredible. That wasn't even in our lifetime, and I imagine that's probably not even half the F1 grid's lifetime neither. So a very long time ago. So yeah, and I know that you've got a couple of Liverpool supporters in your family, so I'm pretty sure that they'll be looking forward to the end of the season. Definitely. I'm pretty sure. But of course, Red Bull are, in a sense, a million miles away from where Liverpool are. But certainly, in the direction that they've gone, so they've got likes of Max Verstappen, youth, Alexander Albon, youth. Liverpool have got a very youthful team, very skillful team, in the same way that Red Bull have got 2 skillful drivers, one world class and one with a lot of potential. I know Verstappen's still got potential, but out of the 2, Verstappen's probably hit his potential in compared to likes of Alexander Albon. So they've got a bright future ahead of them, and so do Liverpool. If Liverpool keep up this trend of buying in young players, developing them, maybe selling them off for a good profit, let's say, and investing that money back into their squad, Liverpool should be at the top for a long time at least. In the same way that Red Bull should be, like Max signed a brand new contract. What can Alex do for 2020? Keep that momentum there. Keep that momentum going. Invest well, and hopefully, keep the management all happy and the same. And maybe Red Bull might be just up there one day.
Well, yes, great comparison there, Jordan. And well, actually, my Merseyside family, half of them are Liverpool, half of them are Everton. So there's definitely a bit of a kind of a breakdown there, and
Ooh.
yeah, it is very strange. I think I would be more red than blue, but yes, we'll have to see. So anyways, of course, we're not sticking with Merseyside. We're going to go to the east now, and we're going to go into Greater Manchester, and of course, we're going to stick with them. I'll give you a clue. We're going to stay with two Manchesters in this comparison. But for Ferrari, the second off top team, the just nearly pedigree history of Formula 1 team, we are of course going to go with the team in red, the Docklands team, of course, of Manchester United. Now, this team is the history. So, cast your minds back to when I did the NFL video. I said that the Dallas Cowboys were the history of the NFL, you know, America's team. It might not be kind of true, because obviously we've been really nowhere, you know, in the past few years. I think our last Super Bowl was over, 30 odd years ago now, start of the 90s. Manchester United are very much the same, obviously very similar to Ferrari as well, but similar in that coincidence, kind of, they're known in the Premier League to be this amazing team. You remember the class of 92, you remember Ryan Giggs, Paul Scholes, Cristiano Ronaldo, and even David Beckham. And obviously Sir Alex Ferguson, of course, at the helm, an amazing, legendary manager, one of the best managers the Premier League has ever seen. And that's very much similar to Ferrari, and very much similar to Dallas as well, but we're not going to talk about Dallas. Ferrari, not really been there. It hasn't been a massive drought for them, but again, a team that, for them to just to be not really midfield, but for them to be lacking, even if one or two places down, even third place on constructors, even fourth and fifth and sixth, is just not acceptable. And even second place, like they finished this year, is still not acceptable. Why is a Ferrari team, why is the Italian team, the history, well, really, they are Formula One's team, if you like, Premier League team, Man United, and Formula One team Ferrari, why are they so low? They've had some good players bouncing around. Obviously bouncing around these days, Romelu Lukaku, things like that. They've had some good managers, of course. Well, they've tried to find their feet, since Sir Alex left, but of course nobody could really fill those boots. I guess you could say of like Stefano Domenicali and things like that. But they're a little bit on the rise, but they still have a massive fan base and they still have a lot of people behind them. Of course, you have some great players as well. Marcus Rashford, obviously he's after a season, but Marcus Rashford as well. They have some young guys like Luke Shaw, guys like David Hare as well, who have been really steering the ship. Obviously, old and young to Charles Leclerc and Sebastian Vettel. So, of course, Sebastian, the guy who's been at the team for a long time, knows how, this kind of stuff is ran. The young guy, Charles Leclerc, as well, obviously trying to spread it out between the Manchester young players programme, the under-23 team, to obviously who they have at the moment, trying to go forward. Obviously, a great guy at the helm as well, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, one of my favourite managers, to be honest. Also, as well, very much like Ferrari as well, because they only kind of have internal people working. Maurizio Pochettino. I said Maurizio Pochettino. What's he called? Maria Binotto. He, of course, worked in Ferrari for over 30 years. He even worked before Michael Schumacher. Of course, Maurizio Arriva Bene. That's where I was going, John. Arriva Bene. That's where I was going. Arriva Bene, he worked in the team, going all the way through the team. Of course, Enzo Ferrari, he worked in the team as well. So there's been a lot of kind of internals in love for Manchester. Of course, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer used to play for the team. Not there at the moment, but that history is still held on to. Manchester Old Trafford is packed out, but it's packed out with people still wearing, Vodafone and AIG shirts, still remembering the good old days. And I'm sorry, but they are not there anymore. Where they are in the in the league is really not good. Fifth place, I mean, it could be worse. You look at Arsenal, you look at Spurs, you look at West Ham. I don't know why I'm picking on West Ham loads, but you look at like those kind of teams, it could be worse for Man United. And it could be worse for Dallas, for example, like I said in the NFL video. But that's not the case. Ferrari aren't a team to just do average in Formula 1. They have to be winning. And of course, they aren't at the moment. They had pole positions, and yes, they had a few wins, but in terms of constructor-wise, not there. Even second place, I would say, it's not good enough for the kind of legacy and support that Man United have. And of course, that has never been the same since they had Fergie in charge. So yeah, that's a good, I think, comparison. Penultimate team in the Championship, Ferrari to Man United, which can be also thought as the second team in Manchester, because of course they are not there at the top. And the first team in Man United could be someone very familiar in this episode.
Yeah, United, not at the standard what they used to be. Same way with Ferrari. So obviously one more team left, one more football team to put with them. we kind of gave you a bit of a clue. Of course, for me, this is probably the easiest choice that we had. Was like when we were planning this, we went, right, Mercedes are instantly going with Manchester City. I mean, excuse me, Man City. All right, Man City aren't having the best of seasons right now, but forget about this season in terms of this comparison and look back at when they came with the money. They've absolutely dominated the Premier League. I think they've won 5 titles, 4 or 5 titles. They've won about three or 4 cups. They haven't won any European championships, unfortunately. That might come one day. But certainly that they've, without that money, without that development or whatever, that the Man City would again be nowhere. And again, like they are like the modern day Ferrari, let's say, like purely dominate the sport in the same way that the likes of Red Bull and Ferrari aren't dominating anymore. And again, we've got like putting them with comparison with the likes of Chelsea and Liverpool, who again aren't dominating, or Liverpool are, but in the history sense aren't dominating anymore. Man City are the new team at the top, and of course Mercedes were the new team, well, still are the new team at the top, the team to be beaten by. They've had a really good organisation in the background and the structure. They've got a brilliant manager, of course, in Man City, a brilliant team boss in Toto Wolff, brilliant players for Man City, brilliant drivers for Lewis Hamilton. It's going to take something big for either of them to be knocked off the top. Of course, Man City losing out on the title. They're not going to win it this year, but certainly they'll be back next year. I'm hoping that we'll have like a bit of like a battle of like Man City Liverpool in the Premier League, going all the way in the same way that we have a battle for between Ferrari and Mercedes in the Constructors' Championship. So you can kind of see where I'm going with that one. But yeah, like I said, I think that was a very, very, very easy pick. Mercedes, how long will they be in Formula One? Who knows? But certainly, since they are going to be in Formula One, they will be at the top. Even through this 2021 regulation change, I certainly think that Mercedes will still be at the top, in the same way that when rules change in football, when financial rules change in football, you know, Man City, chances are they will always be at the top, or at least around the top in the future. So for me, easy comparison. I think there's nothing much more to say on this one apart from Man City and Mercedes go hand in hand, form a partnership or something. That'd be pretty cool.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, definitely. Obviously, Pep Guardiola. I mean, the leader. Yeah, I guess you could say Toro Rosso. Again, I don't really know how he does it in terms of kind of comparison between him and Jurgen Klopp. I would definitely put Jurgen Klopp ahead of Pep, but Pep manages to do it. He has a great team behind him. I guess the two drivers for me could kind of be like Sergio Aguero and Kevin De Bruyne. You know, Valerie being Kevin, Sergio being Lewis. Sergio was the leader of the team. Obviously, you remember in 2012 when they won the title, which was one. I think it was either the first or one of the. Obviously one of the early kind of stages of the money coming in. Aguero, 3-2 against QPR, massive moment, and then Kevin De Bruyne coming in. Young guns, and there's now kind of challenging for the lead at Man City. So great partnership, great rivalry. And of course, if Man City could pair it with Mercedes, I think that would be good. The money flow would be incredible. Anyways, guys, that is the end of our episode. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the comparisons. Of course, we are expecting a lot of comments in terms of people, do you agree, do you disagree? We hope you disagree, so leave it down in the comment section below. We're interested in seeing, obviously, let us know who you guys support as well. Why? Just tell me a little bit about your team, and if you disagree, tell us what Formula One team you think it should have been. This is the first video back of us two in 2020, but of course we are still a few episodes away from the F1 debate show. The first episode back, which is, don't know what number it is, I think it's about 150 maybe, is back on Saturday the 1st of February. So please join us for that. It will be a very good one. I can tell you right now, we are going to be doing our 2020 driver predictions. That should be a great episode. And let me tell you right now, I don't think we're going to be putting Alexander Albon at the back. I'm not sure, but you'll have to wait and see. But that's
definitely
a little bit of
not.
I don't think.
A little spoiler alert in there. A little spoiler.
Yeah.
Just Albon's not going to be at the back.
Only a little one. But I'm telling you, we probably won't. There's probably someone you're probably thinking about is at the back. But anyway, you'll have to wait and see for that episode. It should be a very good one. Thank you very much for watching this episode. If you're just new to us in 2020, thank you, welcome. And obviously, we hope you enjoy our videos for the rest of the year. Thank you very much for watching this episode. And until next time, guys, we'll see you later.
See you later, guys.